Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome. My name is Zoe, but most people know me as ZA Reptiles, and this is Kronk, my 𝘬𝙪𝙨 boa, and for today's video, I wore my Muppet Hawaiian shirt just because it felt very fitting for the theme of today's video, or the topic of today's video. So y'all know, I'm a big fan of large reptiles, especially large lizards and tortoises. But not everybody has the space to keep large reptiles, so we're going to talk about some alternatives to everyone's favorite large reptiles that the average reptile keeper can probably keep. Number one on the list, tortoises, or large tortoises. We've got things like sulcatas, Galapagos, Aldabras. Everyone loves big tortoises. But the reality is, most people don't have the space to properly accommodate a large tortoise, especially if you live somewhere like I do in New York, where you can't have them outside the majority of the year. So what's a good alternative? A Hermans tortoise. A Hermans tortoise is only going to get about 6 to 10 inches in length, and they're only going to live about 50 years. Now, 50 sounds like a long time, and it totally is, but it's much less than those larger tortoise species that we had mentioned. So if you don't want your tortoise to outlive you, depending on your age, that might be the way to go. Also, being smaller, they're gonna need a smaller space. Next up, our large reptile, we're talking Burmese, reticulateds, anacondas. Those large snakes. A good alternative? A 𝘬𝙪𝙨 boa. You guys know I talk about Kronk all the time. I preach 𝘬𝙪𝙨 boa keeping. I think that 𝘬𝙪𝙨 boa is the perfect pet snake, especially if you're looking for a larger species. They are slow moving, they're easy to handle, they're known for being gentle giants. Granted, they are known for being a little more food aggressive inside of their enclosures, but when they're out, total gentle giants. Kronk actually isn't food aggressive at all, even in his enclosure. He's very gentle with his rats. Very gentle. They're not going to need the space that you'd have to give to some of those larger snakes that need literally a whole room, ranging about 6 feet to 8 feet, which is pretty average. There's some that gets bigger, some that get smaller, but 6 to 8 feet is pretty average. So if you're allowing them to fully stretch out, you're talking a 6 to 8 foot long enclosure. I would go, because they're thick snakes, I would do about 3 foot deep and 3 foot to 4 foot tall. As a minimum, you can always go bigger. But for Kronk, that's what I would do. I would probably do about 6 by 3 by 3 so that he can fully stretch out, and it still gives him some room to climb as well. Pros, as much as they eat larger prey items, they're not going to eat humongous prey items. So you're saving some money there on your food for your snake. Number 3, if you're looking at an iguana, some sort of iguana, but specifically a green iguana, an alternative, a Chinese water dragon. They have very similar setups, just on a smaller scale. So you still like the idea of a tropical arboreal lizard that likes to swim and climb, a Chinese water dragon is a great smaller alternative. They can have spicy attitudes, just like a green iguana can, sharp nails, fast, jumping, climbing, swimming, you name it. They're like a mini green iguana, which makes them a little bit easier to care for. Now all you need is a simple grow tent, like I have over here for Puka, or a 4 by 2 by 4 enclosure like you can get from Zen Habitats. Provide them some water to swim in, places to climb, and you're set to go. Now a word of caution though, a lot of Chinese water dragons are wild caught or farm raised. Puka was one of them. Someone, without knowing any better, bought him from an expo, and him and the other one they bought were fighting a lot. So I went and picked up Puka from this girl, and Puka was in very rough shape. Fortunately, she pulled through and is living a great life. Very healthy, very spunky. Doesn't appreciate me at all and everything I've done for her. But they're a lot of fun to look at and watch, and you can create a beautiful setup for them, which makes them a great display animal. Number 4, if you're interested in getting a tegu but you don't have the room for an 8 by 4 by 4 enclosure, might I recommend a jeweled Lacerta. Now here's the one thing I hear all the time, that jeweled Lacertas are mini tegus, and it's very true. The issue is jeweled Lacertas tend to really have a problem with not wanting to be handled and interacted with, where tegus can be like big puppy dogs like Muppet. Jewel Lacertas, like Crikey, would rather you be hands-off. However, that doesn't mean you can't interact with them. Crikey is one of my favorite reptiles. I will always have a Jewel Lacerta. They are just so much fun to watch. They're very interactive without having to be hands-on. I've held Crikey a few times, some of which were his choice, some of which were necessary, and he didn't enjoy it very much. But nonetheless, if I'm in here, he'll come out and watch me. When I lived at my parents' house temporarily, his enclosure was at this level right next to my bed, so I could just sit on my bed and work and watch him. He'd watch me. Very interactive, an amazing species to keep. And there are people that get lucky and do have Jewel Lacertas that will be handleable. Especially if you get one as a baby and you work with it a lot, it's a total possibility. But who doesn't want a beautiful, colorful lizard? But also the melanistic ones, the black ones, beautiful as well. So if you're looking for that black color that you would get in a black and white tegu, maybe a melanistic Jewel Lacerta is the way you want to go. And number 5 on our list, an alternative for a Savannah monitor. Now this one I really want to bring up because Savannahs are super common, super easy to get your hands on, but not what people expect all the time, and they're constantly being cared for improperly, being rehomed in horrible shape, you know, being wild caught, farm raised. Savannah monitors they're just one of those animals you hear a lot about in the hobby, but you don't really hear good things about them in the hobby. Now if you have space for Savannah and you're gonna do it right, absolutely go for it. But if you're looking for something a little bit smaller, a tinier alternative, if you will, an Ackie monitor is a great option. Ackies have become very popular. They're being much more readily bred, so they're easier to find. They're not too expensive, a couple $100, but very smart lizards. If you interact with them a lot as they're growing up, they'll mellow out, be pretty handleable. Reptar, once he's out, it's pretty easy to handle these days. Getting him out is still a challenge, but once he's out, he's pretty easy to work with. But a lot of work went into getting him to that point. But again, 4x2x2 minimum, 4x2x4 even better. Bigger? Awesome, because they can get quite hefty. A decent sized lizard at 2 foot in length, that's pretty big size. That's including the tail. But they're gonna be much smaller than a Savannah, need less space than a Savannah, need less from you than a Savannah, while still getting that very interactive, smart monitor personality. All right, that is it for today's video. If you can think of other awesome alternatives to the animals that I listed, then leave them in the comments. That way people can get ideas. And as always, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you for the next video. Bye!